Alright guys, hope you all had a fantastic Easter weekend, staying indoors, and hope you are all keeping safe. Today I've got a couple of things I want to talk about in this video, some news and some discussion points, including exclusive loot quality, stealth nerf, and NPC armor and health testing. If you enjoyed this one, drop a like down below, subscribe for Division 2 content, and let's begin. Alright, so to start off with, let's talk about loot quality, because it appears there may have been a stealth nerf. Now, I cannot verify this because I'm not a dev and I don't have access to the actual data that the devs do, but the forums and Twitter has been flooded over the last kind of couple of days with people saying heroic difficulty loot has been worse since the title update 8.5 update, which was what, a couple of days ago or whatever. Now here's just a couple of forum posts all saying the same thing, and I have to admit, you know, I've been playing on challenging mainly, and I've had moments where I've got max rolls and moments where I've got, you know, just terrible gear. The like I've never actually noticed before TU 8.5, but I noticed afterwards. Now that could just be coincidence, right? But I've never seen the forums and Twitter flooded with this question before. Now on Twitter the question was put to Nikki Cuppins by the Dream Team, who said, "Good afternoon devs, some of us are feeling that the loot since last update has degraded. Heroic missions mostly drop mediocre rolls. Here is just a sample. Is this planned this way? Has anything changed? Thanks." Now on screen you'll see the rolls included in that post, and to be honest, they are barely above 50%, and that's just really poor for heroic difficulty drops. And let's not forget, heroic difficulty is the highest difficulty outside of legendary, which is only available on free missions. Especially when the devs said that the loot drops would be less often, but they would be more powerful. That's what they said before this expansion actually came out. Now Nikki Cuppins did respond and say, "Nothing has changed in terms of the minimum rolls and chances of god rolls per difficulty. No." Now, I trust the devs for the most part, but this is kind of hard to believe, especially when the devs said the harder the difficulty, the better the loot. But it doesn't appear to be like that right now. Now let me know in the comments below guys if you've experienced something similar since the past update, i.e. title update 8.5 in respect of loot quality, especially at the higher difficulty levels like challenging or certainly heroic. Or if you're an absolute beast and manage to play through legendary often, let me know what you think about the loot quality since the update as well, because if this is something that everyone is commenting on and I've seen, you know, loads of posts about it, then it can't just be some, you know, the community is so smart, they don't let stuff miss, and it feels as though, from what I've seen, it feels as though the loot quality has degraded, but I've not played legendary, so I don't know if that's the same for legendary mode. Next up, and before we get to the NPC armor and health test I found on the forums, more DZ exclusive loot is going to be coming. Now Like Butter tweeted at Bruce saying, "That was the single most fun in the DZ I've had in the Division 2. The second some rare drops in the DZ, it's an all-out war. Please Bruce, give us more DZ exclusive loot that is worth grinding for. It reminds me of the Division 1 days of incentive to PvP. Absolutely awesome." To which Bruce responded saying, "That's the plan." Now I appreciate that PvP is absolutely broken in this game, and there are certain things that are absolutely destroying the experience in the DZ, like status effects for example. So Like Butter probably just got very lucky with this DZ experience, but I think having more exclusive gear to specific modes is ultimately a good thing. Like having the Eagle Bearer tied to the raid, I think that was a good thing, along with raid exclusive gear sets, the Pestilence being a DZ exclusive exotic, and the rest. I do think there needs to be more of this, and I agree with Like Butter when he says that the DZ, when it's functioning as it should, can be one of the best experiences in the game, especially when there is rare loot to get. Now exotics unfortunately do not meet the mark right now, and I don't suspect they ever will be, because the devs have made it clear that exotics are there to provide a unique way to play the game, and they inherently do not feel worth the rarity placed on them. It's good to hear that exclusive gear will be coming, and I suspect, like before, this will apply to the raid and all other PvE activities, like it should. Now before we move on, take a look at the Bighorn exotic, which you can get from legendary missions. This is something I'm probably never going to get, which is fine because I'm not good enough to get it. I don't think anyway. I've not really tried it out, but I don't think I'm good enough to get it, and I don't think I'll be able to get a team to do it either. But from what I've seen, this weapon is pretty bad. Now the devs really need to figure out how to incentivize us players to get these rare items, which by the way are not guaranteed and instead have a really low drop chance. If it's so rare and it also requires only really the hardcore audience to get it, certainly for something like Legendary, it needs to be worth the grind. And in most activities, except for probably the Eagle Bearer and the Pestilence right now, that just isn't the case, certainly with exotics. Exclusive gear and weapons, I think they're good, and the idea that we're going to get more of them, I think is a good thing. But they have to be worth the time invested. Otherwise, what's the point? And just as well, what I will say off script is that I don't want the devs focusing on trying to get exclusive gear and stuff into these modes before they actually look at these modes like PvP and try and work out how to make them actually worth playing. Right now, the Dark Zone, Conflict, anything PvP related is a mess, pretty much, okay? And that needs to be fixed first before we start putting in new gear. Next up, a recent post came up on the Division 2 Ubisoft forums which aimed to make a point about NPC armor and health for elites post TU 8.4, and I think it's worth us looking at this to truly understand the frustrations of what I imagine is a lot of you guys, certainly if you're using skills. Alright, so let's start off with the post here. It says, I've been doing a lot of testing these last few days on specifically elite NPCs of all types and factions with various damage dealing weapons, items and skills, etc. I've come to the conclusion it's messed up, both defense and damage pertaining to that one type of enemy NPC, i.e. elites. First test was for a heavy tank elite, hyena, black tusk, outcast, etc. 4.3 million sticky bomb. It takes approximately 4 to 6, sometimes even 7 stickies to kill or take them down. That's also with the help from civilian NPCs. That's 17.5 million armor to 30 million armor on challenging. That seems way too much considering the output with the highest damage item I have. Also tested on the same NPCs my 910k Stinger Hive and 150k Chem Oxidizer, which is a poison armor shredder, and it took 4 hives at 14 charges each, plus up to 10 or so Oxidizer canisters to take them down to health. My 110k Assault Turret took 3 throws and nearly 8 or so minutes to take one down, but they do get kicked out in one swing if it's not safe. My mortar turret at 3.2 million a mortar takes a good 10 mortars to take down a heavy. Alright, so I just want to quickly chime in here before we go on for the rest of the post. When it comes to skills, they generally do not target one specific area of armor on a heavy NPC. Instead, they target the heavy entirely, which makes them much harder to take down because their mechanic requires you to target one armor section to get the best results in taking them down. If you're running something like any build with a weapon and you shoot each individual piece of armor every time you take a shot, it's going to take forever. Now, I did do some of my own testing on challenging by targeting just one area of armor with an all-red M1A build, and the results showed it took about 8 to 10 million damage to take down a heavy elite NPC on challenging. What is clear from this part of the post is that because skills, they don't target specific areas of armor on heavy NPCs, they do feel extremely underpowered against them compared to weapons, where you can do that. Moving on. Elite non-tank NPCs, i.e. grenadiers, shotguns, rushers, bowmen, etc. It takes 2 4.3 million stickies to down one, meaning they have 8.6 million armor, yet I can only build up to 1.5 million, okay? LMGs at 100k damage, it takes approximately 5 times 205 round mags to down a tank elite, or 1 or 2 mags to down a mob elite or NPC elite. Now, I'm not so sure about this. I did some testing on challenging in the firing range, and for an elite NPC, because you can't test the tanks, which is something I think they need to add actually to the firing range, but for an elite NPC, it was about 6 million damage to down, so about 3 crit shots with my M1A build and about 6 non-crit shots. With a 101k Pestilence, it took about 57 rounds, which consisted of crit and non-crit hits. So I don't really see how this matches up compared to the testing before, but we will move on. As for their damage output, my assault turret has a health of 5.4 million, yet a single elite NPC can take it out in 15 to 20 seconds, and I tested that several times. Tanks and heavies just run up and kick it once, 5 seconds it lasts. So what gives? I'm all for having an OP power push, but at the moment it seems our armor values and damage output is so far behind NPCs, and it's just a bit silly. Oh, and I also tested it against normal and purples. They do go down faster, but not as quick as I thought. Didn't have this problem before the latest patch. And this goes back to this latest patch, because I've seen quite a lot of reports from people saying that things seem to have changed quite a lot since the latest patch. You know, I've talked about loot quality in here, but now we're talking about this. I do agree on NPC output on skills. I've talked about this before a lot. I'm not going to do it here because I have so many times, but skill health needs to be increased a huge amount for line of sight skills, and maybe there does need to be some way that skills can target specific areas of armor on heavy NPCs. Otherwise, you know, they're always going to feel underpowered in these instances because they're not focusing on what is required in order to take down these heavy NPCs. That's it for today's video, guys. On Wednesday, in 2 days, I will have my usual state of the game recap, which is going to be focused on exotics. I'm very much looking forward to see how the devs are going to address these. Hopefully it's good news. Thanks for all of your support as always, and until the next one, guys, epic out.